Hello, and thank you to everyone that was able to join us for today's financial counseling call with AFCPE and FPA. Today, we are excited to have Cait Howerton, who will be presenting Hiring Best Practices for Financial Services Firms. Cait is a financial coach, accredited financial counselor, and candidate for CFP certification. She helps her clients uncover their ideal life goals, navigate their values and money beliefs, and evolve their behavior to achieve their dreams. She infuses authenticity and inspiration with proven financial processes to yield innovative, ideal, and substantial financial plans for each of her clients' unique journeys. If you have any questions for Cait throughout the presentation, please place them in the chat box and Cait will get to them as she can. Also, the AFCPE completion code will be given at the end of the presentation. Cait, you're all set.
All right, thanks so much, Nick. I am going to wait just a few minutes for people to pop on. I know it takes just a couple of minutes for everyone to hop on, so maybe give just about a minute or so before I get started, or 30 seconds. How's everyone doing today? Tell me where you guys are dialing in from so I can see who do I have on here even with me. Say hi, let me know. Atlanta, LA, what's up? Portland, Virginia, all right, all right. Chi-town. Hey, Wanda. Maryland. What's up, Brianka? Hey, my girl. First time. Welcome, welcome. Anthony, are you a member of the AFCPE or the FPA? Hey, Brian. FPA. Cool, cool, cool. Glad you're here with us. All right, guys. So we've got some people on. I think we can probably get rolling. And if they're not on yet, they'll be able to jump in when they get here. No, Burke, I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry if it's not. You don't have to have your camera on, and I think you already should be muted. So, all right, guys. So today we are going to be talking about hiring best practices, especially for financial services firms. I'm sure that's how most of you got to me, is from being with a financial service firm. My name is Cait Howerton. So I am a financial coach. I'm an accredited financial counselor. I am a member of both the FPA and the AFCPE. Most recently, I passed the CFP exam this past November. And so you guys can see a couple of things that I'm doing right now within my career and within extracurriculars and so forth. Member of the FPA of Georgia. I help with the Pride Planners Knowledge Circle. So if you ever see stuff coming through on your email, if you're a part of the FPA Connect, or if you're on the FPA Connect forum and so forth, you'll see me there. And I also participate in the Women's Initiative with the CFP board. So if I can ever help you out with any of these areas, certainly reach out to me. So today we're going to be talking about best practices for hiring, especially around the areas of diversity and inclusion. So these are things that we hear about often, especially within the media, within from our different organizations and associations, et cetera. But sometimes it's more of kind of from a theoretical standpoint. We don't know how to apply those topics. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here today, is I'm wanting to introduce the unique needs of individuals, and especially to be able to give you a framework for being able to apply these things to intersectional recruiting, hiring, and retention. So I'm going to ask you to do a couple things for me. One is, if you're able to, I know it's lunchtime and I know that we're all busy, but if you're able to, be here now. So set aside the emails, set aside the texts, really just kind of be here take a breath, participate, engage via chat. I'm going to check it every couple of minutes, and that way I can talk with you guys as well. I know that I'm not there with you and be able to be face-to-face, but I would like for this to be a conversation. I would like for you guys to be able to listen and engage with an open mind and heart. Diversity conversations are never easy because for a lot of reasons. So with that comes the third point, is give yourself and others grace and understanding. I want us to be able to kind of build bridges between one another and really come to a point of understanding who someone is, because really that's just what diversity is. It's just that we're different in particular ways, but we're also very much the same. And the last thing is, I would like for you to concentrate on having one takeaway today, whether it's a takeaway for yourself, takeaway back to your team, for something that I hope that there's at least one thing that you learn and that you're able to apply. So because it's 2019, I want to go ahead and give you the information that you need for, if you want to go ahead and get this on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. These are the handles, those are the hashtags, and as Nick said, if you're a member of the AFCPE, you do get CE completion for this. So go ahead and stay tuned towards the end, and I will get that announced for you. Alrighty. So here is the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force mission from the AFCPE. Something that's really important is that we feel supported by our organizations and associations, especially as we go forth and are trying to apply some of these initiatives. So the AFCPE has a Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, and this is their mission statement. Same for the FPA. They have a diversity and inclusion statement that was recently issued. This was actually put forth in 2018, 2019. So notating here that diversity, it's an integral part of our culture and identity. And inclusion is the way that we treat and perceive others and all individuals and their differences. I kind of like to think about this as diversity is being invited to a dance, and inclusion is being asked to dance. So it's one thing if you just let somebody know that, hey, there's this party going on, but if you go across the way and strike up a conversation with someone, that's really kind of a good analogy for what true inclusion can look like. So kicking off with some of the stats, especially for you financial folks, I'm sure that you guys will nerd out on this. These are the most recent stats were issued by the CFP board on professional representation of marginalized groups that they're currently monitoring. So CFPs are currently made up of about 1.9% Hispanic and Latinx individuals, and Hispanic and Latinx individuals make up about 16% of the population, according to the most recent census. African American individuals, about 1.5% of CFPs are African American, whereas, and this is a little iffy, but about 13% of the population, I actually thought that should be higher. And then this stat for LGBTQ folks, it's currently not being measured by the CFP board. And this is the 7% of the population. That was actually not from the census, because the census isn't measuring this. This was from another survey. On the gender side, if you guys follow the CFP board at all, in the last couple of years, the Women's Initiative has really stepped up with making this a focus to make sure that we have increased enrollment of CFPs and representation of women. So there are currently only 23.2% of all CFP certificate holders are women. And this has been fairly stagnant. It's been about the last forever. It's been quite a long time that this has kind of remained around the same point. And so they're really focusing on trying to get more women into this field. So you guys are probably like, holy crap, this is a super long quote. And I'm actually going to read it for you because this is a big part of the framework for today's conversation. What intersectionality is, and this was introduced by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. Intersectionality from this quote is, I'm suggesting that Black women can experience discrimination in ways that are both similar to and different from those experienced by white women and Black men. Black women sometimes experience discrimination in ways similar to white women's experiences Sometimes they share very similar experiences with Black men, yet often they experience double discrimination, the combined effects of practices which discriminate on the basis of race and on the basis of sex. And sometimes they experience discrimination as Black women, not the sum of race and sex discrimination, but as Black women. What this is really important to draw out is that oftentimes when we're having conversations about diversity and inclusion, about DEI topics, we kind of come at this from a very segmented point of view, looking at race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, religion, so on and so forth. And what I want to kind of stamp for today is that we can't look at these issues in isolation. We have to be looking at these almost like a Venn diagram, that we are all made up of all of our beautiful parts. And I think my friend Rianka says a multifaceted diaspora. Help me out on that, Rianka. I can't remember 100% your quote, but it's something with diaspora. It is an awesome quote. So going into this, I'm really going to be looking at, when we're hiring, that we're not just looking at like, can we get diversity in just one area? Really looking at that people are all different, and people are made up of so many parts. So for the next 30, 45 minutes, this is kind of where I'm going to be spending our time, looking at recruitment and retention in particular. So when thinking about recruitment, this is kind of making seats at the table. Starting with your website. How many on the call, how many of you guys have spent any time on your website in the last year? Show of hands, say yes, say something in the chat box. I'll look at that. Let me know how much time are you spending on doing this? Got some yeses, got some people coming through. So, let's get back. Nothing on diversity though. Okay, cool. Hey, Jerry, good to see you. So this is something that for me, I am an LGBTQ person. I identify as a masculine presenting lesbian. And when I got into the financial planning field, this is probably one of the first places that I start. When I talk to a lot of my friends who have historically been kind of left out of financial services, this is something that they tell me that like, hey, we look for this. We look for this information to know before we even started this first conversation with a firm owner. Are they going to discriminate against us? And so this is something that kind of want to start right away with it is, are you representing your commitment? So do you have a diversity statement? Eugene George there's a resource I'm going to give you guys at the very end of this. She has done a really good job of showing how to actually create a diversity statement and a mission statement and so forth, committed to diversity. Are you showing up with your language and your media that shows that you actually support the full spectrum of people? So people of color, LGBTQ individuals with disabilities. This is a part that we oftentimes have a blind spot to. For me, I'm Caucasian. I grew up in the South. I didn't grow up readily alongside a lot of people of color. And so for the first part of my 20s, all of my media just had white people in it, because that's who I am. And so that's what I looked for first. And it takes kind of being called in, being checked, whatever you want to, just becoming a little more woke, that you start seeing that like, whoa, how am I really representing who I work with and who's important? And kind of newsflash, we're all important. So that's where I want to start with that. Next place is, where are you recruiting? Where are you looking at actually getting your candidates? CFP Institute has identified that oftentimes marginalized individuals aren't even aware that this is an option for a career. You don't hear about it growing up. You hear about doctors, lawyers, teachers, so on and so forth. So we know that we're coming into this already with a disadvantage comparative to many occupations. But especially for individuals who are facing more obstacles, they think you almost have to be wealthy to be able to get into financial planning, or to get into financial counseling, to get into financial coaching. So this is where attending job fairs and networking events at historically Black colleges and universities, at all women's colleges, or just universities near you with diverse student populations. The other thing is that I learned that is so crucial is your presence on social media. There's a hashtag called #FinTwit, and as a member of financial services, you may already be engaging this, but some of my best allies, some of my best my mentors have came from Twitter. I actually got a job interview request from Twitter. So, and that's something that I found that's incredibly important, is directly reaching out to diverse candidates. So individuals are going to come to you and submit their resume and so on and so forth. But if they don't know about you, and if they don't know that the job actually exists, it's kind of hard to fill that pipeline with people who are not just kind of within the majority. And so this is something that I've learned, that if you see that there is a role that is really best fit with a particular personality, and that you can train on some of the more technical skills, reach out to that candidate. Let them know that, hey, yes, this may look a little bit above, kind of a little bit for you to strive for, and you may not be there yet, but let's see if it's a fit. So that leads me right into where you advertising your job openings. So men are more likely to use their network connections and word of mouth to find a job, whereas women and other underrepresented individuals are more likely to use third-party websites. I'm sure that most of you on this call have heard of that statistic or that stat about that men are more apt to apply for a job that they're not actually qualified for. Whereas women, it takes like 80 to 90% for them to feel like they're fully qualified for a position before they even send in their resume. So that's the other part of this, is like, if our industry is also kind of driven off of the good old boys club, and really speaking more onto the financial planning versus just the financial coaching and counseling aspect of this particular question, if that continues to perpetuate of just word of mouth job openings, then women and other underrepresented individuals aren't going to be able to get into that pool. This is something else that's kind of interesting that I learned about in the last couple of years, is what language are you using in your job postings? And this is kind of silly when you say it aloud, but like traditionally masculine words like competitive or assertive actually deter women from applying for positions. So Kat Matfield has a gender decoder. There's several others online that you can check out. And it's hard to even recognize, because a lot of women also don't, on the surface, wouldn't have any problems with these words. But it's when they're used in aggregate that it's a subconscious reaction to where we're like, wow, maybe this isn't a fit for me because it's too salesy, or it's commission-based, or this or that. And even if you're not saying those things, or even if that pay isn't tied to those type of frameworks, it can kind of come off that way just by the word usage that you have within your posting. So going on to the application and screening, is it inclusive? So 20% of LGBTQ plus Americans have experienced discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity when applying for jobs. So here's things that you can do to be a bit more inclusive with how you're asking questions on your application. Are you giving multiple options for being able to disclose their gender? Is that even important on a job application? But to where if it's just male or female versus man, woman, non-binary, gender fluid, or even prefer not to disclose at this time. Giving a few more options makes it just a bit more inclusive, and it also is a signal showing that these things are important to you. What criteria are you using for eliminating candidates? This is something that is so easy for us to have a blind spot in. That if it's just you reading resumes, if it's just you interviewing, we as humans have a natural bias to have affinity for people who are like us. I mentioned about in my early 20s how all throughout my growing up, I wasn't exposed to a lot of people of color. I'm LGBTQ. So when I looked around, it was a bunch of white lesbian women. And that's kind of who I had a natural affinity towards. And I was like, whoa, I need to shake this up a little bit. And we do the same thing whenever we're at work. And so that's where it's really important to use a blind resume reading tactic. So what this means is like names would be removed from resumes. Not always super easy in this day and age of electronic resumes, but if you have 100 applications come through, make sure that it's not just you screening those resumes to be able to say, let's interview them, let's not. Get a panel going. And then the same thing for whenever you're actually interviewing candidates. I work at a company called SmartPath as a financial coach. I'm a part of our interview team. And so our candidates go through 4 different people before they're offered a job or before they're told no. So that's something that's incredibly important. And then when someone is actually given a no, other people have to be involved in that conversation as well. And it has to be a very relevant kind of pro-con list of why are we actually telling them that we're not going to hire them. Well, I mean, let's make sure that we're checking our biases, and let's also make sure that we're even checking our professional biases, where someone may not value one skill set versus another. We make sure that we have that panel together to be able to say like, yeah, I know actually EQ is incredibly important. It's just as important, if not more important than this technical skill. So let's not tell them no yet. I'm gonna go check out some chats real quick, see what we got. Yeah, so Jerry, I think men also generally get socialized in a way that encourages them to consider their weaknesses / shortcomings. So for some, it simply doesn't occur to them that they might not be qualified. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I love also immediacy bias or recency bias. Yes. And right, has to fit our culture is actually reflective of biases being firmly in place. Absolutely. So that is something that I'm going to talk about here in just a second, that my friend Rianka does a really great job about writing about through 2050 Trailblazers of hiring for culture add versus culture fit. And I will talk about that in just a second. So getting into some metrics, what metrics are you using to evaluate potential candidates? So school prestige can disproportionately favor individuals of privilege. So a little bit about me. I grew up in rural Arkansas. I'm a first-generation college student. I did very well on the ACT. I made like a 31, I think. Super bright kid, like 4.2 GPA. I went to a D2 university. I had a full ride there. I was paid to go to college, but I could have easily left. I could have easily left Arkansas. I could have easily gone to a D1 or even higher than that. But for me, shoot, my family was happy that I was just getting my butt up and going to college. And then I did as well as I did academically. I didn't have the guidance at that time to understand the importance of education. I didn't have the guidance to go on college tours, to apply for the ACT. I applied for the FAFSA. I mean, I was the one asking my parents for their social security information and 1040s and so on and so forth, because they had no idea how to do it. And so for individuals that have come from a place of wealth or a place of privilege to be able to go to institutes that carry more favor, you really can be kind of stepping away from hiring someone who's an amazing candidate simply because they went to a no-name school. So that's something to keep in mind, is whenever you're looking at that, to make sure that you're not putting too much weight on the name of the school that they went to. Standardized test scores, super biased against women, especially people of color, and students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. If you guys want to learn more about that, really cool resource is through Vox, which is VOX on YouTube. You can go learn about standardized test scores and kind of how they've related to keeping especially people of color out of educational institutes. Recommendation letters as well. On average, letters for men are about 16% longer than for women. And those adjectives, going back to those more masculine versus feminine adjectives, caring, compassionate, helpful, are more frequently used. And those can kind of evoke those gender stereotypes within hiring. All right. So moving on to some questions, or excuse me, to a section about retention. I'm going to check the chat real fast. So here is that section that I was talking about culture fit or culture add. So just for a second, I want you to imagine that you're attending a social event or a conference or wherever, and no one looked like you or acted like you. How would you feel? And when you think about this, this is what's happening right now within financial services. It sucks. It sucks to walk in and to be one of the only LGBTQ people in the room most of the time. I tell my partner, she's feminine presenting, and I'm like, yeah, baby, you can fly under the radar. But for me, when I walk in, I'm instantly like, hey, what's up? I'm Cait, I'm gay. And so I can't imagine, but I can empathize the same thing for people of color of walking in and to every single face in the room doesn't look like yours. So when we talk about a culture fit, if a fit is that it's all homogeneous of everyone's white, that's not really diverse, and it's also not allowing for difference. And so this is where culture add is so important, and not just from race or gender, but also from religion, from socioeconomic background, from diversity of thought. I mean, when I grew up in Arkansas, you guys, I live in Atlanta now. So when I talk to someone who's in California, I think in a completely different way than you all that have lived there your entire life do. When I talk to someone in New York, same thing. And so we're able to then kind of identify blind spots when we band together and work together so that we're able to create bigger and better things, but we're also able to serve more of a broad and diverse clientele. So that's something that I kind of want to really point out there is establish values. I think it's incredibly important to have core values as an organization so that you're looking at who are we serving, what's important to us, how are we going to treat one another, what are the things that we have established as a group and as an organization that we want to always hold kind of near and dear to our hearts, if you will, but to be able to hire for that heterogeneity of people so that you're looking for that people kind of that exude the same values as you do, but they also add a whole other part of culture that's currently missing. And the last thing with that is just by being able to hire diverse people across different spectrums, you're able to build those innovative and productive companies. Yes, thank you. Rianka, please do share that article with the group. That would be perfect. Yeah, perfect chat. And Nick, if you will field any of those questions for me, I will get to them in just a second. So here's some stuff on environment. And honestly, my partner is a researcher, and she brought some of these things up to me recently that the light bulb just went off for me. I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So when you think about your physical space, gender neutral bathrooms, this is something that doesn't always happen, but having those is definitely a signal to LGBTQ folks, or to folks that have their disabilities or their needs, that having bathrooms that are gender neutral, or at least like a single use bathroom. Is your building accessible for people with physical disabilities? So just because it's ADA compliant doesn't always mean it's accessible or inclusive. I went to a coffee shop about a month and a half ago, and the ramp to the shop was like, it felt like 2 miles away for someone. Like they had to like walk way out of the way to go actually get into this coffee shop. And I was like, wow, this is awful. So it doesn't always mean that it's inclusive or even accessible. Something that hits close to my heart, and I'm sure that others as well, we work in a kind of a day and age to where open space work environments are hip and popular, and they allow for collaboration of teams, and they look great on Pinterest. They're awful if you have ADD. Awful. So I have ADD, and so I can't speak for anyone who is neurodiverse, but from my lens and my perspective, holy crap, noise and visual pollution for employees. And this may be something that like you probably don't even think about if you aren't neurodiverse, but it's just someone coughing, someone walking across in front of you, your coworker leaning over and just asking a simple question, coupled with email going off, Slack going off, coffee makers going, so on and so forth. Every single thing is just a little bit that distracts your mindset. And so it may only take you away for 2 or 3 seconds, but then it takes another minute to get back on topic. And so when you do that all day long, it adds up. Another part of environment is creating an environment of safety and an environment of belonging. So this is something that, especially as a manager, for those of you that are hiring and for those of you that have employees, I want you to really think about is how are you creating a dialogue between your employees, and how are you allowing them to be able to give suggestions, especially free of consequence. So company leaders aren't really going to be anyone's confidant. So even when it seems low key and with an open door policy, that you'd be able to go back to someone and say, yeah, this is what's up. And you tell your employees, I really want you to give me constructive feedback. They're not going to because you're writing their paycheck, and they don't want to rock the boat. I think most humans, not all, we all have that crazy uncle on Facebook that stirs up stuff in politics over Thanksgiving dinner, but most humans are inherently kind of avoidant of conflict. And so I think that an awesome solution that I see that my organization does is that we use Gusto as our HR provider for our payroll and submitting PTO requests and so on and so forth. They send out a monthly survey that's anonymous, and it's super easy. It comes to your email box. I think that Gusto even makes it to where there's like a topic of the month, to where the employer doesn't even have to think about what they want to survey, unless there's something that's happened recently and they want to survey the climate. But you can implement that if Gusto is your provider. If not, there's also Google Forms, to where you truly can make it to where it's a anonymous collection, and you can show your employees, look, like whenever you send your answer, I don't receive your email address back. This is purely anonymous. So think about that to give them a consistent way of providing feedback. Bert, the potential awkwardness, just the experience of going through the exercise can be also helpful in shining a light on areas of life experience that one not be aware of. How many people aren't white, heterosexual males do I know well enough in my life space that I'd feel comfortable approaching them with something like this? And having gone through that experience at different times in my life, I've learned a lot about my blind spots, just really fundamental things that I've never been challenged to think about or worry about. Absolutely. Super great points. And that's for me, I think within presenting this presentation is to kind of just show some of the things that maybe we don't have to think about on a day-to-day basis. But even for me, it's so limited from my own perspective and my own lens, and the areas that I've taken the time to kind of inspect, or that others have helped me come to realize. But It's continually a work in process. So benefits. What benefits are you offering to your company? And especially as a lot of people working here for nonprofits, a lot of people who own their own business, I get it. I get that benefits are hard. I get that they're expensive. But I at least want to call light or shine light on these things. So I think something that's really, really important is equal parental leave for all genders. You know, having two parents, having one parent, no matter grandparent, whatever your family looks like, kids benefit from having loving folks in their life. At work, when you offer equal parental leave, if someone's partner has just carried a child, you know, they need their partner home with them to help, to really help bond with the child, to also help them, to help with the housework. I mean, I cannot even imagine what that's like. Shout out to everyone who has carried or has adopted, because you guys are the real MVPs. Not just carried or adopted, but also to those who are, to their partners have carried, whatever. You guys know what I'm trying to say. I'm stumbling over this. Shout out to the parents is what I'm trying to get at. Offer leave, which will be LGBTQ friendly. So paternity leave, not just that it's parental leave, not just paternity leave or maternity leave, that you're looking at offering it to everyone here. Adoption, especially on the second parent adoption side. So for LGBTQ folks, for me, if my wife were to have a child, if my partner, and if we were married and had a child tomorrow, even if we were married, I would still have to go through the process of doing second parent adoption. And so that's something there's a lot of sticklers within looking at parental leave when you're looking at the benefits policy. So to check out the wording and make sure that it's inclusive of everyone. Something else that's super helpful, and it does cost money, but it's not as hard to implement, because especially if someone's already salaried, is offering unlimited PTO, or flexible sick days, flexible hours, especially for childcare, for single parents. So if they're able to kind of set their own work schedule, or if they're able to just be like, hey, look, I'm sick, or my kid's sick, I'm working from home, that has a huge return that honestly, it's hard to even quantify how nice it is to have that flexibility, but to also to make sure, to not have someone kind of on top of them, monitoring how much you're doing, how many hours you're putting in. So being able to measure your employees' productivity, truly from productivity, not just from hours on the ground. And is your insurance plan inclusive? How does it work for people with physical or cognitive disabilities? Are there mental health inclusions? Are you making sure that your employees are able to get therapy? Are they able to get chiropractic work? What happens if they have pre-existing conditions? Or if you've hired a transgender person, are they able to actually receive benefits to cover their medical care? Something that goes back to the point before about gender representation within financial services, especially from the CFP board. Transparency of salaries is really, really important when it comes to the gender wealth gap. So underrepresented individuals are less likely to negotiate pay. They're also more likely to be passed up for promotions. So by creating clear and objective job ladders with transparent pay bands, you're able to offer, or at least seek, pay equity. And you can also be able to make sure that your efforts and status, all of those outcomes are unambiguous. So going back to what is a pay band, at my organization, something that I love so much is that we have a job ladder. As a financial coach through SmartPath, when you come on, or as a financial planner, there are a set of responsibilities that you have for each level. So whether you're an associate financial coach, a senior financial coach. And then within each of those three tiers, there's financial coach 1, 2, and 3. And so by having these things, it shows you where are you doing well and what do you need to work on, or what do you need to work on to be able to be promoted? And what's super great with each of these job ladders is that there's a pay band associated with this. You're going to make X amount of dollars if you're a financial coach 2. And then when you graduate to financial coach 3, this is how much you make. And so everyone at my organization knows what the other person makes. There's not really any ambiguity there. And so it cuts out the resentment. It cuts out the wondering and the questions, but it also makes it to where women are paid the exact same as men based upon true productivity versus their gender. So as we're nearing the end of this presentation, I want to go ahead and kind of provide some resources to be able to consider the what else can you do, what, you know, if you have other questions, etc. Before I go there, I'm going to kind of pop back into the chat and see what else has happened, see what else is going on. Tara, that's such a good point. I realized at some point that when I was being inclusive, I was really trying to make others more like me instead of them let them be the best them they can be. That was a pretty profound shift for me. Yeah, that's awesome. Measuring productivity instead of hours is really hard. I spent the last couple of years focused on this and really finally got into a good place. I would love to hear more about that. I'd love to hear more about how have you done that? You know, how have you been able to get into a good place with being able to measure more productivity versus just your hours? So for those that are AFCPE members, this is located, if you go to afcpe.org and you log into your account and you go to the member resources page, you'll be able to see kind of this whole mini list here. But especially where I have circled on the diversity inclusion toolkit, there's some more information there that you can go read and that you can actually implement with your own firms, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's for-profit, if it's government, if it's military, so on and so forth. They're very, very applicable. And some of them, there is an intrinsic bias test that's offered through the AFCPE member resources in the diversity inclusion toolkit. There's some really cool stuff that I love it. I drew some of my inspiration for this PowerPoint through that. And then as a member of FPA, same thing. They have a diversity inclusion page. You can access this. If you go to FPA Connect, you can get to it. I think just if you go to the FPA website, it's actually at the bottom under diversity inclusion. So it shows the vision statement. It shows in the news, it shows the FPA diversity scholarships that are coming up. And there's also a direct link to Pride Planners, so that if you want some more information on Pride Planners and joining the Knowledge Circle, you can do that. For anyone here that is interested in the FPA Diversity Scholarship, and I also know that AFCPE offers scholarships to their symposium, check it out. I was a diversity scholarship winner. That's where I've met some of my greatest friends thus far. That's where I met Rianka, that I've called out on this webinar. Honestly, it was a profound shift in my career, in my visibility as a financial planner and as a financial coach. And most importantly for me, as a diverse individual, it brought a lot of healing. I know that's kind of silly to say, but I had this mindset for myself that because I'm in the LGBTQ community, I wouldn't be able to be successful as a financial planner. I had doors closed on me before within the financial planning realm of having a job, kind of told me that you're not going to be able to work here because I don't think that you'll be a fit for our clientele, so on and so forth. And when I went to the FPA retreat, which is the conference that I received my scholarship to, everyone was wonderful and so inclusive, and they wanted to generate conversations with me and to help me succeed. So the point that I want to make here is that if you're considering applying for one of these scholarships, do it. And if you need help, reach out to any of the folks that are on this webinar or to myself. We will make sure that you get connected with the people that you need to be connected to. and to make sure that you succeed. And so last thing before I give you that elusive CE code is I want to give you some resources here. This presentation will be available at the end of the week. It's going to be in the FPA Connect. It's going to be through FPA Connect in the financial counseling community. You'll be able to find it there, or you can reach out to me. I'll send you the link directly. But this additional resources section, take a screenshot of this. For the financial services industry, if you have to go follow the 2050 Trailblazers podcast, there's serious big names. People who are movers and shakers within our industry are on there every season with Rianka. The Zahn Associates Diversity Scholarship paired with 2050 Trailblazers. If you're interested in completing the CFP curriculum, that's like, I wholeheartedly pledge allegiance to Zahn Associates. That's how I passed most recently. I actually won that diversity scholarship, so it's awesome. Quad A, if you're African American or if you're an ally, check out Quad A. Diversity Inclusion Initiatives through CFP Board. Sonia Dreitzler has done an amazing Do Better series talking about most in particular about harassment or even just sexual harassment, emotional harassment, especially for women, but not just. The Do Better series is incredibly important to check out. You guys can read through the rest there. Keith Beverly did an awesome job with that model for closing the racial gap. And Pride Planners Knowledge Circle, if you're LGBTQ or an ally, please go join that circle. Please start that conversation so that you can better serve LGBTQ folks. The Smart Path Diversity Best Practices, that's an awesome link to this. I will make sure that you guys have these in your hands. You can certainly reach out to me for them if you aren't able to get that through the FPA Connect community. And so lastly, before I turn to the chat, see if there's any questions or kind of where everyone is right now, I wanted to just be able to notate that it's time for parents to teach young people early on that in diversity there's beauty and there's strength. That's Maya Angelou. So keeping that in mind, what questions do you guys have? What thoughts? Let me know. If you are a member of AFCPE, the CE code is Hiring Inclusion 2019. Oh, that's good stuff in here. Michelle Robinson, scholarship winner here and only in financial industry 6 months. Yeah, you are, Michelle. Look forward to our call soon. B. Mackey, I love it. I love it. Thanks for the comment on my hair. I need to get a haircut. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow, so I'll be fresh, super fresh. I'll make sure I get you a picture of it. Jerry, so important. I also learned that we don't know everything there is to know, even about white heterosexual males. An example, the life experience of white heterosexual males in poverty or those who are part of the working poor class isn't the same as those of middle and upper class life or circumstances. Completely true. And so that very much echoes the initial conversation or the initial kind of premise for this talk of intersectionality, of seeing that the experience of one person is not the experience of another, it's not the experience of another, based upon life circumstances, based upon race, gender, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, so on and so forth, socioeconomic status. Appreciating those differences, absolutely, absolutely. Shanna, how do you help coaches and planners with their performance reviews and progression? So, and if you want to elaborate on that question, and if you have a little bit more in particular that you're wanting to know, for what we do at SmartPath of helping coaches and planners with their performance and reviews and progression. So we actually do a weekly one-on-one with their direct manager. That's kind of the first thing, is that or sometimes it's a bi-weekly depending upon the week and how busy we are. but they're sitting down with their manager and they're going through what's happening, what's going on, what projects are you working on, what obstacles are you facing, how can we best support you. And then about every quarter, we're looking at that coaching ladder framework, and we're looking at what is their current job performance? Where are they ranking? How are they doing well? What are areas that they need improvement, or areas to focus on? How can they build and grow towards the next step? The other part of that their manager's also doing is they're wanting to understand, what are your goals? Even just outside of SmartPath and this industry, what are your goals for the next 5 years? What are your goals for the next 10 years or for your career? And something that I think is so important is that our culture echoes the premise of, and I can't, I'm trying to come up with a word for it. I can't come up with it, but essentially one of our values is that it's not just that you're working here for the rest of your life. At SmartPath, we recognize that you may move on. At some point, this journey may not be a fit anymore, but we want to make sure that we're setting you up for success, even after, if you're no longer working with us. So that's part of what's being examined within those quarterly performance reviews. And then again, once a year, they do that through a performance review when they're looking at, is it time for promotion? Is it time for merit raises, so on and so forth. Did you have any other questions outside of that, Shanna? And okay, cool, got it. All right, folks. Any other questions or anything that I can impart with you guys before we leave today? Give it about 15, 20 more seconds. Thank you so much for joining in. Absolutely. Hey, Shanna, shoot me an email, and we can definitely convene. My email is Cait, which is CAIT at joinsmartpath.com. So CAIT at joinsmartpath.com. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And shoot me something on Twitter. Let me know that you were here. And I look forward to connecting with you guys again soon.
Thanks so much, Cait, for being with us today.
Of course.
All right. Have a great day.